What's up, everyone? Hopefully, audio and video is coming through good once there's like the 30-second delay or however long it is in YouTube. So, hopefully, by the time you see this, the audio and video is good. What's going on, everybody? I am like super excited for this webinar. I have been doing a lot with like these technologies recently and just really excited to build something in an hour and a half or so. That I think will be pretty cool. I think we'll have like an app that we won't be embarrassed to share with people. I'm excited, so hopefully you are as well. I just realized like I've got the stream open and then I had it on pause, so I was wondering why everything wasn't coming through. So Code Stacker is here. What's up, Code Stacker? Sherry, thanks for being here. Sherry's been on a lot of streams and been a big supporter, so I appreciate you being here as well. Komal, it says you're a boot camp student current, or I am a boot camp student currently building an app in React and Rails. So we won't do Rails here, but this will be pretty React heavy, which I think will be fun. Damian Montero, I don't know if Damian, like, did you change your message? It says retracted the original one. And he said, like his dad used to say, if James is streaming, then I'm watching. Damian, thanks for being here. Appreciate it. Chris on Code is here from Vegas. Chris, I thought you were on the road to Utah. Weren't y'all going to Utah? But by the way, Chris's house is coming along really nicely. They went from like not the concrete, or I guess pouring concrete for the foundation, I guess. And then now they've got like the whole like scaffolding with the wood up, which looks really good. I'm super excited for you about that. Diego from Argentina. Hola, Diego. Gracias por estar aquí. I guess, Damien, we can speak Spanish as well. Stephen or Stefan from Kenya. Wow, that's really cool. We got people in Argentina, Vegas, Kenya, South Florida, and then a couple of other people from the UK. Dick Baker is from the UK. Very cool. We've got like a global audience from Nashville, just down the road from me, by the way. I'm in Memphis, Tennessee, about 3 hours away. Typically, I spend a decent amount of time in Nashville. I actually went to school in Nashville and then visit like several times a year. So maybe one day we'll get to see each other there. My Spanish is perfect. I don't actually get to speak much anymore. But one of the things that I want to do is I've been wanting to reread some books in Spanish, and I think I'm going to read the Dan Brown books in Spanish. So I think that will be cool. I read a lot better than I speak, for what it's worth. Dolores from the UK, and then Sherry is in Atlanta, Georgia. Very cool. So like I said, I'm like super stoked about this webinar. I was out like playing basketball the other day, and I was thinking about the webinar because I didn't know exactly what I wanted to build. And it literally just like, while I was like zoned out shooting basketball, it came to me, and I've got like what I think is an amazing idea. So what I want to do is combine like, go Doors, Boogie Bum. I don't recognize your screen name, but if we know each other, let me know. But go Doors for all that's worth. So I had this idea of like, one, getting into the idea of React and Serverless, which is pretty easy, considering not easy in terms of like doing it, but coming up with ideas. Because with serverless, you can do anything. So then I started to think about like, what are the things that I've been playing around with recently? One of those is Cloudinary. So I want to do some image stuff with Cloudinary, of uploading images with Cloudinary. I want to then store a little bit of like meta information about those images also in Airtable. And then I guess those are the two main backend things. And then I add authentication with Auth0. So being able to add login, and then depending on how far we get, we can get to like authorization to our API endpoints. And at the end of this, I want to have something like an hour and a half where it's deployed, it's ready to go, and you can use and you can log in and you can upload images of your dev setup. So that's what this is building, like, I'm calling it dev setups, which is where you can upload an image of your desk or your setup, and you can upvote different people's images. And yeah, so that's kind of what I'm thinking. We'll see how far we get in an hour and a half, but I'm like probably a little overly excited about this. So if I move too quickly, let me know in the chat. Send me a message if you have questions to clarify things. Let me know. I'm obviously going to try to talk through the things that I do as I do them. But other than that, just stay in contact with me in the chat, and we'll get going building this thing out. And then last couple things, Boogie Bum is Clayton on LinkedIn. Awesome. Yes, Boogie Bum. So we've connected or had several messages. Thanks for sharing stuff on LinkedIn as well. And then Aramo is in Nigeria. Very cool. And then I just got a text from Coriano, who says he's on the chat as well, or in the stream as well. So anyway, very cool. So I want to show you a couple of things. The couple of things that I've kind of set up before we get started here is, if you've never used Cloudinary, Cloudinary's badass. It's really cool. I just became an MDE, a media developer expert. So you'll hear me talk a lot more about just media in general. And then honestly, like probably a lot more about Cloudinary as well. So what I want to do is I want to be able to upload, you see all these like test images that I've uploaded. I want to upload all these images into a specific folder. That folder is going to be the dev setups folder inside of here. And this is where all the images are going to live. And with Cloudinary, we can do all sorts of like optimizations on these images in terms of like transformations and sizing and scaling and all kinds of wild stuff, which is a lot of fun. And then also, along with that, I've got a table created in Airtable. And you see I've got some dummy data here that I can delete. So what I want to store in here is, after I upload an image in the serverless function to Cloudinary, I want to then upload a record of that to Airtable. And the reason is I need to associate the different images with a user's username and then a number of likes, which will update in real time. Not quite real time, but we will be able to update by hopefully adding like functionality. So I've got Cloudinary set up. Inside of Cloudinary, one thing I want to show you is I have a preset upload, the upload preset. And with that, you can define like what's going to happen when someone uploads here. So I've got this dev setups upload. And what it's going to do is it's going to upload the files to the dev setups folder. And you could do other different things. I'm not really doing anything more than that, but I'm going to use this preset. So when I upload an image in my serverless function, it's going to automatically go to that folder. And so we'll go ahead and get inside of this folder. So I have, which direction? This way. I have a basic React app up here. And I'm going to go ahead. Actually, first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to just kind of use Bootstrap in here to make this as easy as possible. And I forget what exactly, I think in the index, I just imported the Bootstrap CSS. I'm not going to get fancy and do like the Bootstrap components or anything. I'm just going to use like kind of raw Bootstrap classes just so I don't have to worry too much about all the styling here. So that I'll install. What I'm going to do first is create, I guess we'll create a components directory, components. And then inside of here, we'll create an upload.js. And I have snippets in here for React, the ES7 React Redux, so-and-so snippets. So this will create a functional component here, or stub it out. And then I guess we want to have a form in here without an action. And inside of here, we'll have a label. And this is going to be for the file. And so we'll say upload your setup. And then we'll have an input of type file. I think that's this one down here. And the name of this will be title, and we don't really need the ID there. And then for Bootstrap, I think we'll surround this all with a div of, actually I need to double check, a div. It's been a while since I've done Bootstrap. Let's see. I'm just kind of checking my reference code over here. Where is this? A div with form group is what it is. So form dash group. I don't know. Am I not going to get my IntelliSense? Class name. I'm trying to use Emmet in here, which is really, really nice. And it works most of the time, but I didn't get the auto completion there. So form group, just going to put these things in here. And then we'll also have a button of type submit. This will have a couple of class names like your basic Bootstrap button type thing. Button and button dash primary. And then MB2, which is margin bottom 2. And then we'll just call this upload. So let's save that form group. And then the input, I think here we'll have a class name of form control file. All right, and let's just get this thing up and running. So npm run start. And what we're going to do is we're going to allow, need to pull this on the right page, take it away from here and put it over here. All right. Let's see. All right. So there's our app running. We need to update the index, not the index, but the app actually to use our upload component. So inside of app.js, let us grab all of this info and just get rid of it. And then we'll do get auto import for that. We'll add in our upload component. So now, okay, so this is basically what we want for now. Upload your setup. Is this? Oh, that's the label. Did I not? It doesn't look exactly the way it should be. Let's see. On the label, it doesn't have a class. This is a form group. That looks right. And then the form control file and name is not title, but file. And I think that looks right. All inside of a form. I don't know. If this starts to look a little bit odd, it'll be fine because I'm not too worried about the styling. But the one thing we can do is in app.js, let's just give a class of container. So that will give, I guess that's what I was missing, just giving that wrap up here. And then we'll also add, I just love this, like MT margin top -4 to add a little bit of margin up here. And now we get our little bit of gap. So that's cool. So as we have this form now we can go and choose an image, and I'm going to use my desk setup image. I've got all these random pictures I could use on here as well. So like in this, like it doesn't really show you very much. It just kind of shows like that's the name of the thing that you uploaded, but it doesn't really show you very much. So I actually want to get a string representation of this image, and that's the thing that we're going to basically upload to the serverless function when we get to that point. So we want to look at the onChange event for the input. So let's say handle change equals, and this will take in an event. And I think we want to look at the e.target.files. So that's going to be the files that get uploaded. We can get a reference to those in e.target.files, and then we'll add the onChange to our handle change. And like I said, I'm going to move pretty quickly through this, partially because I'm a little overly excited about it, which is like cool for me. But if you have questions along the way, just throw them in the chat and I will make sure to try to get those addressed. So let's just look to see if we have something showing in here. Let's upload, doesn't really matter. Here's a Twitch image from Twilio. Cool, so that looks like it's grabbing it okay. And you look in here, we have a length of 1. So this is a file list. I actually don't know this intimately, but I'm assuming it's kind of like a node list in JavaScript, which is similar to an array, but not quite. So what we want to do is we want to get the actual file. So we can get file equals e.target.files of 0. So the first file that's in there, we're just handling like one upload at a time. So we'll get that individual file. And then we want to convert that thing. And this is where I'm just going to cheat and copy in a little snippet here. We want to convert that to basically a string. And so here's my copy and paste logic. And I'll explain what it is. So we get a reference to this file. Here, we then create a file reader. This thing is going to read that file, and then it's going to read it as a data URL. So that's what we're calling. And data URL is basically like the raw string representation of that image. It's all just like bytes at the end of the day. So we'll read it in as a string. And then there's a couple of like, I guess these are just kind of like antiquated looking, like define your callback function type things. When the image is, or when that thing is finished. So when the load is done, what I want to do is I want to take the result of that reader, and the reader.result is literally just that string. And then now I want to track that inside of state. So let's create a couple of things with useState in React. And this is basically how you manage state in functional components with React hooks, which is a lot of fun. So I'm going to have a image data URL and then set image. I'm going to have to spell this out. Image data URL. And this comes from the useState that we will set initially to empty string. And then we'll make sure to import useState. So I'm curious, let me know in the chat if you've used the state hooks before, or if you've used just hooks in general. Let me know. But what we're doing here is hooks are basically just functions. So we're calling a function called useState. We pass it a default value of an empty string. What it returns to us is an array of two things. And basically we're able to kind of call those two individual things whatever we want by doing this fancy syntax here. So we're saying whatever the first item is in the array that gets returned from useState, we're going to call that data URL or image data URL. And then the setter function, the function that it returns to then update that piece of data, we're saying, hey, that second thing that gets returned inside of this array, we're just naming it set image data URL. So it's a little bit weird to get your mind around, but once you think about hooks are just functions and they return back, in this case, useState returns back an array, and you're just choosing what to call those two individual things, it starts to make more sense. CodeStacker says hooks are awesome. I'm loving hooks more and more. There are definitely some things that can be really tricky, but once you get more comfortable into the hooks ecosystem, it gets really, really nice. I'm going to make sure I stay hydrated through this webinar. All right, so we're able to set this image data URL, which means we can track that thing inside of state. And then what we can do, which is really cool, is we can have like a preview of our image by saying if the image data URL is set, so image data URL and this is just like a conditional syntax in React. If that thing is there, if it's truthy, so in this case, if it's there, let's do an image tag, and we'll do some bootstrap stuff. So image, and I think we can just do image fluid, and then we'll set the source to the image data URL. And then we'll also pass an alt, so it doesn't yell at us for that, of desk setup. And then we'll close out that image tag. And we can just do a self-closing tag there. So now when we update this, we should be getting closer to something pretty cool, which is we choose this file. And I could choose a bunch of, I'll give you guys some random ones in here. Here's me thinking about debugging stuff. And so not only do we like handle the change, we're generating that data URL or data URI, and then we are showing a preview of that file. So now one of the additional things that we can do is we can set our button to disabled. We'll set this button to be disabled if that data image URL, where is the thing? Data or image URL data, image data URL. We'll disable the button if they haven't chosen a file yet. So let's run back here again. We see the button is disabled, and I don't know if you need me to zoom in here, but I will just a little bit. That button is disabled until we choose a file, and it's not really the exact point that we choose a file. It's actually specifically the point that we finished parsing that data into a string. So you'll see a little bit of a delay, and then the button now becomes clickable, and I could click that thing, but I don't want to because it's going to do a default. Actually, I'll show you a default submission here where it does like basically just how forms work by default. And we want to prevent that using prevent default. So let's get into our callback or our handler for on submit. So we'll say on submit equals submit handler. And let's define that. So submit handler equals, and inside of here, I can just console log submitting, and we'll take in the event, and we'll call e.prevent default. So that should prevent that thing from submitting, and that's what we want because we want to handle the submission ourselves by submitting the data to a serverless function. So let's go through this process again. Let's choose a file, and I don't know, where's that desk set? I'll just kind of stick with that for the most part. And then I'll click the submit, and I should see submitting, which is perfect. So let's go ahead and stub this out. I forget what Chris on Code calls this, like wishful coding, or I forget what it is, but it's basically where you like use a piece of functionality that you haven't defined yet. And in this case, that piece of functionality that we haven't defined yet is the serverless function. So let's talk about what we need. We need an endpoint where we can submit that string to, basically. And the way we submit that string is we call the fetch API. Now this is built into JavaScript, so this is there for us to use. I don't have to import a package or anything. And we tell it what the URL is for this function. I'm going to leave this blank for now. And then we can pass it some properties. In this case, we want this to be a post. And then we want the data to be that string. So we can say this is going to be the data or the image data. There we go, that one. So what we're submitting to the serverless function is the data URL, so that string, and then this has a method of post. So we're going to post this information to that function. And then with the fetch API, you can surround it with a try and a catch here. And this is just in case something goes wrong, we want to make sure we handle that. Not that we're doing too much, but we want to make sure we handle it. And to validate that all of this stuff worked, we can get the response back and await the call to fetch, because I'm going to use async await. To me, async await is much cleaner than doing .then and .catch for handling promises. And then I'll get back the actual, the body of the response by calling res.json. And we actually also need to await that thing as well. And then in here, I can console log data. So let me, as I'm like blazing through this, let me take a second. Any questions about what we've got going on so far? We're just working in React. We're able to accept the ability for the user to pick an image and then click the submit button, which in this case will try to submit to that endpoint, which doesn't exist because this one's submitting actually a relative path to the root. So maybe just getting rid of that is better for now. But we're submitting this to an arbitrary endpoint, and we're submitting the image data URL. That's what the body is that's going over to the serverless function. So let me take a second, let the delay catch up. Any questions about that, let me know. And then I'll give a few seconds and we'll just keep on rolling. I just got a request to connect on LinkedIn from Sherry, by the way. I didn't realize we weren't already connected. I would have thought we were, but we will be connected after the stream, and I open that up and accept. All right, if there's no question, we'll move on. But just so I know I haven't lost everyone, somebody just throw something in the chat, regardless of what it is, and let me know you're there. That'll make me feel a little bit better. But in the meantime, we'll keep going. So now we get into this brave new world of serverless functions. And to me, there's no better way to start with serverless functions than with Netlify. Jesse says he's tracking. Good stuff. So Netlify is a place where you can host static websites. They also have the ability to upload and host serverless functions. And to me, it's the easiest way to get started with serverless functions. And the benefit, or maybe just one step back, what serverless functions are, it doesn't actually mean serverless. It means you don't have to worry about the server aspect of that function. Literally, as a developer, you write a function, and then Netlify takes care of the hosting it, the server, all the behind-the-scenes stuff that's going on. And Netlify will basically forward on incoming requests to your function. So all we do is write a function, and we're going to use Netlify to take care of the rest. CodeStacker, Gustavo, Sherry, Kamal, and Boogie Bum, all great. Good. Thanks for checking in with me. So what we can do is actually we can run basically Netlify as a whole locally with something called Netlify dev. And there's two things we need to do to set this up. We need to, well, one, you would need to install the Netlify CLI. So this would be npm install Netlify CLI. I already have that installed. With that comes the Netlify dev command. But in the case of working with functions, we need to tell Netlify where our functions live. And we can do that with a configuration file. So let's create this in the root of our application. I think that wasn't the root, but I'll move it to be in the right spot. So let's move that out to the root. And I'm just going to paste in this really tiny configuration which says, during the build process of this application, which directory is my functions directory? Well, in this case, I'm going to call it functions, and you could call it API or whatever you want. I have always just kind of called it functions. So what we'll do is create a functions directory. And then all we do inside of that is just define a function. So let's define one file for hello world.js. And the way a function looks is it's export.handler, exports.handler, and then it takes in an event in this case. And that's just a function. I, in this case, want this to be async. We will use async await in here as we do any of our asynchronous JavaScript. And I think this is not handlers, but handler. Maybe that would work too. I don't know. But exports.handler. So what Netlify is going to do is when we run Netlify dev, it's going to look for this functions directory. It's going to look inside of that. And for every file inside of there, it's going to look for an exports.handler. And then it's basically going to use that function as an endpoint. So what we'll do just for testing here is we'll return an object with a status code of 200 and then a body of maybe a message that says hello world. But the one thing that you could easily forget is inside of here to do this return, you need to stringify your JSON object. So if you want to return JSON from your string, you have to, or from your function, you have to go ahead and stringify that. John Rogers is asking, do you create that folder under your source folder? No. Well, actually, it doesn't matter. It's arbitrary. It could go wherever you want. Mine does not. Mine goes in the root of my repository. So if it was inside of the source folder, I could just specify here, this will be in source/functions like that. But mine is not. Mine is just at the root in its own functions directory. All right. And then this is our hello world function. So this is a hello or a serverless function that we have ready to go. And now what's really amazing is if we run the command netlify dev, it's going to recognize that there's a React application. It's going to start that React application. And you can see somewhere in here that it is, you see that it kind of ran create React app up here, and it's running at 3000. You also see that the functions are running at 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So what we can test out to prove this is, let's go to localhost, and you'll see this auto complete because I've done this a lot with testing. Hello world. And if can I scroll in for you to see this? It's kind of hard to scroll with the video stuff, but the URL here is localhost and then 34567. That's the default port that it runs at. And then you just, oddly enough, you follow it up with .netlify /functions/hello world. So let's do this. Let's go and hit it. And what we should get back is JSON that has the message as one of those properties in hello world. So that serverless function is running. The other thing that we'll see in a second that Netlify does is it will also do some proxy configurations so that we can call our serverless function from our front end that's both running under Netlify dev, even though they run at different ports. So we don't have to worry about cores. We can just run it. It works seamlessly. And then when it's fully deployed in Netlify, they're both on the same domain anyway, so we don't have any issues there either. Dolorose is asking, is status code always 200? No, status code is whatever your status code should be. So if I returned a 500 here, as I do that, notice that this reloaded, really, really cool from Netlify dev. And then I can refresh this. You won't really notice in the browser necessarily, but if I go to the network tab, for example, and let's just do all, and then let's refresh this. Notice that hello world here, if I look at the headers and response headers, where's response here? 500 internal server error. So you will use these status codes just like you would regular HTTP status codes. So you can have a 404 for not found, a 401 for not authorized, or 403, 401, I can't remember. 500 for internal server, 300 for a redirect of some sort. You use these status codes exactly like you would with any other node server or any other server that you would build. All right, so with all of that stuff set up, what this means now is, one, we have the ability to create serverless functions, and now we're going to get into creating our upload function. So let's do upload.js, and I'm going to copy a little bit of code in here. So in our upload.js, this is where we're actually going to do our upload to Cloudinary. So as you might expect, we might need to install a package for working with Cloudinary. Now I also have some environment variables inside of that .env file, and let me make sure, just in case I click on that I hide those from you. So I've got environment variables set in a .env file. To use those locally while we're testing, we can use a package called .env. So let's install both of those, npm install .env and Cloudinary, and then we'll go ahead and use those. So the way that the .env stuff works is, if you want to access those environment variables, you have to first require, and I think I'm really nervous because I think my keyboard is going bad because I'm getting like double keys all the time. I'm super nervous about that, and I think it's something that's going to have to get fixed. But for the environment variables to work, and by working, what I mean is you can access them at process.env, you need to call require.env and then .config. So after you do that, all of the environment variables that you specify inside of your .env will be available there. And one thing I should probably do, just to make sure after I check this thing in later on, is I'm going to ignore the .env also. So I don't want that thing to be checked in. And also, you should never want that thing to be checked in. Let me check in with questions. Looks like we're still okay. I'm going to keep moving along. Throw them in the chat if you got them. So with that, then we're going to get our Cloudinary reference from require Cloudinary, as you would probably expect. And I don't feel like typing out this config thing, so I'm going to just copy and paste this in from my cheat sheet over here. So with Cloudinary and any other SDK that you use in Node, I don't think I clarified that. We're inside of these serverless functions, we're using Node, so JavaScript, and you can basically do anything that you can do in JavaScript. In this case, we're using an NPM package called Cloudinary, and we configure it with our cloud name, the API key, and the API secret. So if I look in my dashboard in here, it will, I think, show this is my cloud name. You can see my API key. I don't necessarily want you to, but the secret part is the thing that I never want you to see. So that's why those things are in environment variables. And we're just configuring this Cloudinary object to use those different things, the cloud name, the API key, and the API secret. The combination of those is what's going to allow me to upload and interact with Cloudinary there. So then, just like our other function, we'll define exports.handler equals, and this will be an async function that takes in an event, and we'll see how to use that event here in a second. And actually, we could do that now. So what we want to do is we want to get that string that we're going to submit. Remember that data URL? We want to get that from the body, and you get that body from the event. So event.body. It's interesting to note, or something you should remember. In this case, I submitted a string. I didn't submit JSON. I submitted a string. If you're submitting JSON to a serverless function, the body you then have to parse. So you have to call json.parse on the event body to get the actual JSON thing that's there. In this case, since it's just a string, we don't have to do any of that, which is kind of nice. And then we can assign this to a variable called file. And then what we're going to do is await Cloudinary.uploader, and we're going to pass the file. And then, if you remember, I showed you earlier that preset thing. So inside of settings and inside of upload, I defined a preset called dev_presets. That's the thing that's automatically going to put it in that specific folder. So we want to use that as well. So let's come back over here and we'll say upload preset equals, and then a string of dev setup. All right. And that's kind of it for the upload. Let's get back a response, and let's log out that response so we can see it. If I get this to type appropriately like that, and then let's return a status code of 200, again, assuming everything goes right. And then a body of, to return JSON, you have to stringify that as well. So we'll turn back just that response there. No semicolon. So I need like drum roll sound effects. This is going to be super cool. I'm like mind blown of how relatively easy this is. We've created a serverless function. We've got the ability now to run Netlify dev. That will run both our front end and our back end, and then set up some configurations to talk to each other. And then the only thing I think we need to do is inside of our upload component, we need to update this to be .netlify/functions/upload. And notice I'm able to use this relative path here because of the configurations that Netlify dev has taken care of for me. So I don't have to worry about doing a full path. And this path will work the same when we're in production, because it's going to be a relative path and they'll be hosted on the same domain. CodeStacker's got the drum roll for me. So we're getting close. I think we're ready to test this out. So let's do this and see what happens. A lot of times something will break, but we'll see if we're lucky. The only thing we have to change is, instead of working at port 3000, now we're going to work at 8888, which is where Netlify dev, if you look here, is serving our front end application. And that's where it took care of the proxy configuration as well. So let's choose a file here. Let's go to desk setup. Let's do that. So we get a preview here. Now let's upload that thing, and we get back some real stuff. It looks like real data. And just to verify, two things. Let's check that no errors on the server. It looked like the upload went well. We got back an object that has a lot of information about it, which is really useful. We're specifically going to use this public ID here in a minute. But the biggest proof of this is inside of Cloudinary. If we go back to our media library and go into the dev setups folder, well, it looked like it maybe didn't go on the right spot. Let's go back. It came here. Is that the same one? So that's an ID of QEH. Is that, well, yeah. So for some reason it went in a different folder and I don't know why. So at least something is working. We're getting really close. And then inside of our upload, I think it might be dev setups is the preset. Let's double check that. I think I messed that part up. I hope so, because that would at least explain what's going on. This is dev setups with an S. All right, another drum roll. Let's try this whole thing again, and then we'll celebrate again. Code Stacker, if you don't mind, to just throw another party hat in there if this works again. So I shouldn't have to change anything. I just, or shouldn't have to reload anything. It automatically reloaded that function. And then actually we can just leave we don't even have to reload the front end page. We can just upload. We should get that same thing back. And now let's go into Cloudinary, drum roll please. And inside of dev setups, actually I think it went to the wrong place again. Damn it. I don't know why it's going there now. Let's make sure that I am spelling upload preset. I'm going to come back over to the dev setups. And did I pass this thing in correctly? I think so. I'm going to just copy and paste and then make sure that I've got this right. So upload preset, that looks right. And then dev underscore setups looks right as well. We pass in the file and then we pass in the configuration object, which has the upload preset. Let's see. I don't know what I'm missing there, to be honest. Let me use, just in case, let's just use that snippet, which looks the same. And what we care about getting out of that response is a public ID. So I'll go ahead and do that. And then I will return an object in here with the public ID. Save that and try again. I shouldn't have to reload the actual server. But let's try in our app. I don't even think I need to refresh the front end page, but we can do that just in case. So let's grab, this was a picture of me presenting, which my colors were off on my monitor, so I look a little red. Submit that. There's the ID. And I'm thinking that didn't work either because that ID is supposed to come back with the folder in it. Yeah, that didn't work either. So something I'm missing here. Maybe we can manually update our call to Cloudinary. So let's look at Cloudinary's Cloudinary npm. Let's look at that package and see if we can just specify that folder directly. Maybe. Let's see. Upload image, upload documentation. That's what we want. And inside of here, pass it an image, and let's see, file source options. Is that what we want? Upload method of the API. That's probably what we want. And we see here we've got the options here. Inside, looks like it's the upload preset is just a string. Maybe that's what I'm doing wrong. Huh? Anybody catching this? And if you're catching this and you're like, oh, that's wrong. Let me know. But it looks like maybe that this is actually just a second parameter and I can pass the presets just like that. Maybe. I thought I knew what I was doing. I came in with such confidence with the drum rolls and stuff. All right, let's give this, I actually don't know what that error was, so we can maybe do some debugging later. Let's try to upload again. What do I have on here? Some screenshots of random things. That's a screenshot of I don't know. I don't even know what that is. Let's just upload that thing and let's see it come back. And I don't think that went to the right place either. So for some reason, I think it's not getting the preset correctly. Yeah, because that thing that just came here. I don't know. But I'm probably just going to leave it at that. And let's delete some of these. And get rid of those because we don't need them. I don't know. Maybe someone help me in the chat. If you see something that I'm missing, let me know. But I think that I'm doing that thing right. Upload preset. I wonder if, let's try one more thing. Let's try to specify the folder directly. So forget the preset. Let's pass the options, and then we'll specify the folder to be dev setups. Is that what? Let me make sure. I think it's actually the folder might just be setups. Let's see that. Not situps, but setups. Oh, no, it is dev setup. So dev underscore setup. And wait, let me check one more thing. I think, sorry about this. I think I actually called this thing setups instead. No, I did call it dev setups. Well, I'm lost. Anyway, let's go back to our dashboard, our media library. This folder is called dev setups. And make sure I'm in the right file here. I'm uploading or updating the right file, I think. Let's do a restart of this whole thing just in case. I'm not sure if that's what's going on or not, but we'll do a restart here. And was that an error in here? No, that looks like, okay, looks like that's okay. Should be up and running. So let's refresh on our app here. And choose a file and setup and upload. Wow, am I running? Like something is mind-blowingly odd here. And this thing is still logging out the public ID, so that thing is coming in here correctly. And there's something that I'm just missing. All right, we'll skip out on that part. That part's not super important. It's nice for organization, but the main thing that we care is that we get back this public ID. Now, with this public ID, what we're going to do is we're now going to not do that, but inside of Airtable, we're going to save a record for that image. Now, the reason we want to do that is we want to get a reference to all the images that we've stored, but not just the image itself. We want to also get the associated username and then the number of likes. So we'll see how far we get in here, but in theory, we want to add some dynamic capabilities for users to like these. Are you going to still need the presets as it is a required field based on the docs? I don't know. Let's, I guess that wouldn't actually, yeah, so I didn't think that you had to have, am I looking at the wrong, now I'm like overthinking this. There's a difference between unsigned, like when you do an unsigned upload, the preset, let me see, a signed upload. So signed upload is you call upload and then the options. So what the question was from Giovanni, hopefully I pronounced that close to okay, is there's a difference between signed and unsigned. When you do a signed upload, what that means is that you've provided your API credentials, which is what I've done. So when we did this configuration stuff up here with our credentials, now it's going to be a signed upload. So with that, you don't have to specify an upload preset, and then you can just pass the options just like this. And yeah, there's something there that I'm missing, but I think it's going to be okay if I just get rid of that completely and just say, hey, just upload this file. And we can try this out one more time just to prove that that works. So let's come back over to our site. Let's refresh. I don't know why it came back over here. Let's refresh this. Let's grab our, I don't know what that is. Space Jam again. It's fine. We'll upload it and we should get back our ID. And then we're going to have a few things in here that we don't really care about. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of a couple of these as well. So from here, or shift, then you hold shift and you can multiple select, which is pretty nice. All right, so let's delete that. Sweet. So that didn't delete all of those. Did it just delete one? I guess it did. Usually it deletes all. Anyway. So what I want to do now is not only do I want to save this image in Cloudinary, I then want to save the associated record with a username and an image ID inside of, and then a number of likes inside of Airtable. Yes, you pronounced it right. We met on Twitter already with handle. Oh, cool. Very nice. Thanks for clarifying that, JTKD. Thanks for being here also and asking questions. That's good. That's the best kind of conversation that we can have, is just staying engaged, and actually me getting help from you is super helpful. So if you have ideas, or especially if I'm doing something wrong, just throw it in there. So with Airtable, we want to take this public ID that we get back inside of here. I can close the hello world. Want to get that public ID, and let's just create a record object. Or actually, we don't have to. But what we're going to do is take that public ID, and then we're going to hard code a username for now, and then actually hard code a number of likes to 0 as a default. So let's close this out, and we will npm install Airtable. While this is going, I want to do one thing, which is create a folder in here for utils, just some shared code here, and then also have one for Airtable.js. Now, the only thing that file is going to do is it's basically going to be like a configuration file, and I'm going to copy this in, so I'm going to cheat. But I'm going to paste this in, and all it does is get this Airtable thing. It's going to configure it just like we did with Cloudinary. We could do Cloudinary in a utils folder as well. And then it's going to get a reference to the base and then the table. So specifically what that is, let's save this. Inside of Airtable, my base is dev setups, and that thing, it's basically a database inside of Airtable. That thing has a unique ID, which if you go to the API docs, I found in here. So that's where you can get the ID for that base. And then we're using this specific table within the base, which is just called setups. So with the API key and then the base ID and the table name, I can export a reference to both the base and the table. So let's run Netlify dev again. Inside of the upload function, now I want to get a reference to the base, or actually the table, excuse me. So table, and this is going to come from importing that utils, .utils/Airtable. So this will let me get a reference to that actual table object. And this is just so when I do this again in another file, or I don't have to do the same configuration in another file, it's already done for me. So then with this table, what we're going to do is call table.create, and we're going to pass it an object that has the properties that we care about. One is the image ID, and that's going to be the public ID that we just got. Second is user name. In this case, we'll just say James Q Quick. So we're hard coding this. Eventually, we'll get this from the actual user. And then we'll say likes is going to be 0. All right. So we'll create this. And then what comes back from that is the record that was created. And then let's just return the record itself back to the user. All right. And at any point, we're not actually doing any protection in here in case something goes wrong. So let's surround all of this with a try and a catch. And then let's return, in this case, specifically a status code, won't be too specific, of 500. And then a body of JSON string of 5 and something that has a message of, or an error maybe, error of failed to upload image. So just so we have some sort of error message, even though it's super non-specific, that goes back to the user. So I think we try this out now. So this would be a good time for another set of drum rolls. We'll see, but let's refresh this front end page. Grab our desk setup. Let's call upload. And hopefully now what comes back is an object, which is an empty object. It shouldn't be an empty object, I don't think. So maybe something went wrong, although it doesn't look like it did. And this is a common mistake that I do all the time, something you will stumble upon as well. You have to await. So table.create is an async, or it returns a promise, so that we want to get the data back, we actually have to await it. In the meantime, I think we can actually check that inside of Airtable, let's close that out, inside of Airtable, we should see that record was actually created. So in theory right now, what we have is the ability to upload, give the user the ability to select, preview an image, upload the image, upload that to Cloudinary where it'll be saved, and then also upload a record to Airtable where we can track different pieces of information about it, like who created it and the number of likes that it has and so on. So that process actually worked. So maybe the one thing that we should do is back inside of here, if that response comes back okay, let's see, inside of our request and upload.js, let's get rid of a couple of these logs. And if that request comes back okay, meaning we get to this point, then let's set the image data URL back to an empty string. All right, so this will just kind of reset our image. I don't know. I actually don't know right offhand. If somebody does, I don't know how to cancel the file that's associated in here. If you know how to do that, let me know. But for now, what it will do is just get rid of that preview. So let's come back. Let's do this again, and we'll just take any random image in here. Looks like a lot of code. We'll upload this, and hopefully this preview goes away when that finishes. Cool. So that works. And then we don't want all of these images in here. You'll see we have several in a second. Yeah, so there are several. So let's select some of these and then delete again. And that's a little bit of a dangerous thing to do because we just, if you remember, we created records in Airtable that reference those IDs. So maybe that's not the best idea. And actually, now that I think about it, I shouldn't have done that, but that's okay. We'll fix this in a second. So what we can do actually is let's get rid of our records in here. So let's delete all of these records in Airtable. Make sure there's no missteps between the image ID in inside of Airtable and then what's in Cloudinary. And let's start to create a function inside of here for get images JS. So what we'll do is this will be similar to this other. I'm just going to copy this function. Let's just copy that whole thing and come back to our get images. This is going to be a serverless function that will do some stuff. It won't get anything from the body because this is going to be a get request, but it will get a reference to the table inside of Airtable. And what we'll do is now we just want to use Airtable to query that table to get all the records back. So we will say table dot, and I always forget how this works. It's something, and I'm not going to get IntelliSense in here. Let's go and look at the Airtable API for list records and show the JavaScript version. And we'll call, where is it in here? We'll call base and then dot select. So if we do table or just table dot select. So if we do select and pass an empty object, that means it's going to get all of the records. And once it gets all of the records, we want to call first page because it has some built-in pagination stuff. So we're just going to get the first page of those records. And then the result of that will be records. And yeah, so we'll get that back from here. And then we can just console log records. And then let's return records as well. So records should be an array of objects. Question from Giovanni, when you say cancel, are you trying to cancel the request sent equals cancel fetch? I'm not actually sure exactly what you're referring to. I think when I was talking about cancel, I wanted to get rid of the fact that there's an image already selected. So like after you upload an image, I want to not show the preview, but then also kind of get rid of the image that's already been selected. That's what I don't know right offhand how to do. So right now it still shows you that there's an image that's selected, but I have disabled the upload button because I've wiped out the state, the thing we're using in state for the string representation of that image. If that makes sense. Form.reset from CodeStacker. So is this where you would get into like use ref on a form? Like how would I get a reference to? Let's actually look this up. I've never used use ref in React. Form reset. So I'm thinking React to initial state. Yeah, you might have to help me out a little bit here. I think it's a use ref, but I have never done it before. That doesn't use ref. Brad is in here, just got done with his stream. Brad, how'd your stream go? And also teach me how to use ref in React hooks. Let's see. Use ref React hooks. Can I not get an example here? Here we go. And I guess if so maybe I could do something, I don't know if this will work or not, but if inside of upload, I put something in state, so just call this file and set file. And this might have been an easier thing to do anyway. So if I set this to null, and then set up the value on the input. So the value is equal to the file. So it's going to start off as null. And then when we update this thing, let's see if we can now set the file to file. And maybe we should, let's call this input file, and input file, and input or file, just so we differentiate between the other thing. So input file, and then we'll bind this to input file. And then now, after we submit successfully, we can set the input file to null as well. Let's try that out. I don't actually know. So, and we actually need another piece of data in here anyway. So forget use ref if this works. I don't actually know. Value prop on input should not be null. Consider using an empty string or to clear the component, or undefined for uncontrolled to clear. So you can't set it to null to start? Maybe not. I don't know. I'm fine with that. Let's try it. Let's see if it works. And let's choose a file. Let's do our desk setup again. Nope, I selected the wrong one. Sorry. And that broke something somehow. Or maybe it's actually what I'm trying to hack together. Let's see. Desk setup. Does that still can't perform? Okay. There's something I've got like a misunderstanding on this for. And maybe where is it actually throwing the error? On the failed to set the value property on this input element accepts a file name, which may only be programmatically set to an empty string. And then how do you differentiate between? All right, I'm going to move past that. I'm just going to kind of skip it because I don't know exactly what to do. In theory, that's something similar to what you would do. But let's just make sure that I get this to work the way it had been. And this is something I could go and like look at later on and get working. But there's our file. Here's our upload, and the image should go away. And then I shouldn't use the value anymore. So I think that's fine. Let's get rid of the value on this thing. Value cannot be null. Did I set it? Oh, I set it to null. Right. But I don't. There's still something else. Like when I actually set e.target.files. And actually, does file have a name on it? Let's see. Let's log out this file object. I wonder if I can set it to that. I don't know. I keep telling myself I'm going to move past this, and then I'm just interested. So let's try to get a file. And there it is. And then it's got a name. So maybe we set it to the name property. So .name. Oops, that's not what I meant to do. Over here. And then we'll reset that thing after we upload. Let's see. If this part works, then that's a good sign. So can we set it to the file name? No, still don't work. Fail to set the value property. This input only accepts a file name. All right. Anyway, I don't know how to track that. So let's just not do that for now. That's something I could come back to. And then I think if we get rid of the value, it's totally fine because now we're just tracking something in state. So let's do one last time to make sure that that part works. And it does. Cool. So now let's get back to our serverless function that we have for get images. And I think this thing is ready to go, hopefully. So let's look at localhost 34567/.netlify and then get images. Get images this way, function not found, .netlify/functions. I think this is because I need to restart. So if you add a new function, like a brand new file, I think you have to restart your Netlify dev. That already... All right, maybe I'm missing something else too. Let's look at, what did we call this thing? Get images. Oh, I put this in the utils directory. This should not be in utils. It should be in the functions directory. And do I need to reload after that, or will that work? I think I need to reload one more time. All right, let's refresh now. Hopefully we get back some data. Cool. So one of the things that Airtable does is it returns back a lot of data. All I care about is the ID and then the field. So what I do is I take all those records and I say const formatted records equals records.map. And for each record, I want to return an object that has an ID of record.id. And then I want to just spread out the record.fields. So I don't care about all that other information. I just want the formatted records. All right, let's see now. Does this look a little bit better? Hopefully. Yeah, ID, image ID, username, and likes. I think that's really easy. So now inside of our React app, let's create a component for, we can just call it image gallery maybe. Gallery JS. And we'll do a functional component and we'll use effect here, auto import that, and then use state, get that auto import. And we'll keep track of, so let's do use state. This is a snippet here, use state for images and set images and an empty array to start. And then we'll have a use effect. So this is where we're going to call that endpoint at the beginning of when our component loads. So if you've never used use effect, it's basically a way to define when you want something to run, and that something is this callback function inside of here. So if you pass it an array that is an array of dependencies where if anything inside of that array changes, now you want to trigger this function. So if you pass it an empty array, what that means is it will only run this use effect function, the callback function, once. So that's what we're going to do. And then inside of here, want to do some try catch. So in case anything goes wrong over here, we'll console error the error. And then inside of here, we'll do a fetch to our .netlify slash functions. And this is actually slash .netlify slash functions slash get images. So we'll make the request there. It's just a get request, so we don't really have to do anything more than that except await it. And this should be a get. A response is await. Oh, actually, I got these backwards. This should be data. This should be the raw response. And then this should be res.json. Now I'm missing, you can see I've got an error here, missing tagging this function as a sync, but callback functions inside of useEffect can't be marked as a sync. So what you can do is you can define a function in here called const load images equals, and then define a function that wraps that does all of this stuff, and then mark that as async. I know this seems a little, to me it seems a little convoluted. And then at the end of this, call load images. All right. So then we'll get back this data, and what we'll do is we'll just go ahead and set that as our images. So set images, we'll set to our data. All right, and let's log out what that data is when we see it. So here's our image gallery component inside of our app.js. We want to put this thing inside of here below our upload. So image there we go, auto import. Sweet, let's see how that works. And while I'm loading this, still moving fast, and I've got another like 30 minutes in me at least. If you're good to stick around, or just you want to watch the video later, that's fine too. But if you're good, stick around. I've got like 30 more minutes or so that I'm going to put into this and do some auth stuff. And hopefully at the end of this, I'll have it like out there for you to use and upload stuff yourself. So keep an eye out for that. And then let me know right now, again, moving fast, what questions do you have? What are you unsure of? Let me know and I'll try to talk through that. And then in the meantime, we'll test this out, refresh the page, and we get back these images, which is really, really cool. So we get back the image, and for the ID, that's the thing we care about a lot. And I need to pull up, let's look at this thing. This is a use Cloudinary package from my friend Demetrius Clark, who works at Cloudinary, and created basically a wrapper around the Cloudinary API to use hooks. So what I'm going to do is let's go and install use Cloudinary. Let's install that package. And then to be able to display our images, I'm going to just copy and paste over his component here. So this is just straight up out of his, and he called it image.js. And the only thing he's missing is he uses next.js, which auto imports React, but we need to make sure that we import React from React. And what this thing does is it takes in a cloud name and a public ID. Remember why we save that public ID and have that from Airtable, and then transforms if we want to do any fancy transforms, which we don't have to. But let's save this. And now inside of our image gallery, let's say if inside of here, if we have images, so if there are, I guess, images.length greater than 0, and then what do we want to display? Well, we want to display an image component for each one of those, and we'll pass in the public, what did he call it? Public ID. Public ID is the, actually, and I did this wrong. So if there are images, then we need to do a map. So we need to take our images and call .map, and then inside of that, we'll get a reference to each map, and then what do we want to return? Now we want to return that thing. So this will look like this, I think. And we'll have to finish this off. So public ID is going to be, not map here, gosh, the image here. So we'll get the image and we'll pass it, image dot, and make sure in Airtable we call this thing image ID or imgmd. So imgmd. And then the cloud name is, we'll just hard code this to my cloud name. And then we can pass transforms. And this will be really cool. I wonder, am I going to get this right? Let's see what he does in his example of how to make these just kind of small. Does he talk about that? Let's see. Transforms. He's got links, I think, down here to what the different transforms are. I thought, maybe not. Let's look at the README on GitHub. Does he have the links here? No, I need to go back and check out those transforms. Anyway, we'll do that in a second. Just try to optimize this a little bit. So we'll skip the transforms. We'll just pass an empty object in here, and then we'll close out the image component. Does that look right? So inside of our image, we want to return, I think we could get rid of that, but it's okay. We want to return this image component. So that's that parenthesis here. And then one more is not looking like that's in the right spot. I wonder. Oh, we haven't imported the image component. That's what it is. I think that was right. Import the image component. Did that thing import correctly? No, it didn't. All right. Import image from components. Components. Oh, I'm in the image gallery, which is already in components, and then get the image component. Now does that look okay? We'll see. And this is not M, but I for image ID. All right, let's see. This will be, I think, pretty cool if this works. And someone commented, let's see. Let me pull open my comments here. Reset button for clear the form. Raj, you'll have to help me a little bit more. You saw me stumble with it, I think. So you have to tell me a little bit more specifically how to do that. Looks like we're getting inside of our image gallery, not actually getting much help here on what's going on. Let's try to refresh this page and then see if we get an error in the browser. Oh, I bet it's not a default export for image. So this is probably a named export. Does that not function image? Oh, because we didn't export it at all. So export, let's export it as a default, and then let's import it as a default too. All right, now let's see if that works. So it should be pulling the images, and this is doing maximum update. This is running something a bunch. I don't actually know what it's doing there. At image gallery 22. I don't actually know why that's triggering so many renders. I don't know if someone else does. It's at least pulling the images, so that's good. And then images is not really changing, right? Like we should only be running the getting images function once. Which I think is true. Yeah, getting images we're only called once. Each child should have a key prop. That's fair. So we can do that. So key equals image.id. And Nikhil is saying it's not pulling. You have to, can you clarify exactly what you mean there? This happens when a component calls set state inside of useEffect, but useEffect doesn't have a dependency array or, okay, so putting set images in here, which that function should never change. Does that take care of it? It doesn't, which is odd. This can happen when a component calls set state inside of useEffect, but useEffect either doesn't have a dependency array or one of the dependencies changes on every render. And I'm not sure what that would be. So let me make sure. Anybody see what's going on in here? We've got, this is the callback function for useEffect, and then we pass it. Well, it would be an empty array, but in this case, we're passing it that function, which should, if we pass an empty array, it should only trigger once. Unless I'm totally missing something in my useEffects. Does anybody have a lifeline out there for me to help me out here? Really odd. And this is where React or components can get really kind of tricky here. So we've got this function that we call, and we're just calling it once. And console log data, set images. There's nothing else in here that would change, right? Images. If we comment this out, so it's something about the setting images. So Brad, can you, I know the delay in here is kind of tough, but can you see all that code? So we've got use state for our images and then set images, and it starts off as an empty array, which like I could start this off as null. I don't really know why. That would make a difference. I don't think it would. Dependency array, pass it the images. Do you know why I would have to? If that's the case, so right now it is cannot read property link. Okay, so down here, I just want to check if images is there. So is that still a trigger? Same thing. And then you're saying pass in images in the dependency array. Looks like we're still, that's actually going to be a problem. That's going to be worse. Because when images changes, it's going to trigger this again, and when it triggers it, it updates images. So that shouldn't be the problem there. Rats, what are we missing here? And this is just going to continue to go on, which is not great, obviously. And one of the things we can do also in here is with this image that we display, let's add a class name of image and image responsive. And that should at least make them fit on the screen. Maybe not. Did that not work? Where are the class names? Image, and maybe I typed in the wrong image responsive. Oh, image fluid is what it is. Image fluid. Brad says to go to the top of the component. So this part up here. I'm going to check back in here to make sure. All right, that at least is cool. That at least is displaying them. Fluid, yeah, thanks, Code Stacker. So yeah, this is the entire useEffect. I'm importing useEffect and useState from React, which is good. Importing the image the component. Then I have images and set images from useState. Have a useEffect, and here's the callback function. And then the dependency array in here, which is empty. It should not trigger again. And load images. We have a couple of awaits in here to make the fetch request. We get the res. We take the data from that. And then we set the images based on that data. I'm not sure. We don't need to necessarily log this anymore. Hopefully, Brad, you got to see a second or two of that. Yeah, I'm really not sure. one thing that I would like to do is we can control when we call this image. We didn't use transforms before, but we can. That means image Cloudinary component is mounting, unmounting. Image gallery component, because the use effect looks correct. So we're using image gallery inside of here. Like, there's no reason that console log rendering app. Does that mean like the app itself is re-rendering? That seems odd. It doesn't appear to be. Use effect looks good. At least I'm not the only one that's a little bit confused. Makes me feel a little bit better. But what I was going to say is inside of our image gallery, when we use the image component, here's the cool thing with Cloudinary is we can transform each one of these images by passing maybe a width of 300. I think it's just 300 like that. Now when these load, you should see that these are only 300. And I think we need to set the crop to, I forget, auto. I forget what it, or scale. I forget what it is in here. Because that doesn't look that right. Let's look at Cloudinary crop. Transformation reference, and I'll search for crop. Can I go down to that thing? Scale is the default, fit, fill. They have a bunch of crop. Thumb. Maybe those are just high enough res images that they become kind of blurry. I'm not sure, because they look a little blurry on my monitor, but maybe that's just because they're high res and getting pushed down. So at least we're getting those now. I still don't know. This can happen when a component calls set state inside use effect, but use effect either doesn't have a dependency array or one of the dependencies changes on every render. I'm really not sure. Unfortunately, I'm probably going to let that eat at my browser for a while. If someone wants to take a stab at figuring that out and let me know, let me know. In the meantime, I've got, I'm just kind of piggybacking on an application I created for a different demo inside of Auth0 to kind of get this up and running with authentication. I want to let a user log in and then get their ID from them. So let's look at, is your use state defined inside the use effect or outside? Let's look and make sure of that. These are not inside of each other. So that would be really interesting if you did that. Definitely wouldn't want to do that. So they are separate from each other, which is, I think, the way it should be. Yeah, Brad's saying outside. So inside of here, let's see which tenant. I think I've got the who to follow tenant. This one is already configured with being able to connect to Twitter. So let's grab the front end application here, and I'm going to go through the quick start just to kind of show you what I'm doing. Let's go to React and just come through here. There's some configuration inside of Auth0 to let it know which application you're running and working with, which is totally fine. And then we need to add these dependencies. So one is React Router DOM, and then the other is the Auth0 SPA.js package for working with authentication in single page applications. We also need to create a utils that exports this history object from it. And this is in the doc, so you can go and grab this and look at it yourself. Utils and history.js, and I think I didn't copy like the first couple letters. Import. So this gives us access to the history object throughout the application. And then this is a bunch of boilerplate code, which I'm just going to dump in here into utils as well. So this is auth.js and paste that in there. Like you can look at that yourself. Basically, it's just setting up React context to share different things about the user state. We'll see that in a second. And then inside of here, we need to wrap the application inside, or wrap the application with our provider. So what this will be is inside of index.js. We can copy in this boilerplate code. We can import the history thing from util/history. And was that a default export? I'm not sure. Let's check. Export default. Yep. So we get history there. And those things are okay. And then we need to wrap our application with this provider. So it's going to look like this. So instead of that part, it's going to be this right here. So we'll wrap this with the Auth0 provider. And then we need to have a couple of configuration things inside of here. I can actually just hard code these. So I'm going to grab the domain. Where is Auth0? Here. So it's the who to follow. Actually, do they have the... There we go. So let's just set this in here. So let's grab the const auth config equals, and then that object. These things are not necessarily private, so you can actually see them and it'd be fine. So auth config, and then we also want to pass the audience, which is who we're going to pass access token to. So get into that in a few minutes. But inside of here, let's define an audience of, and let's look in Auth0 for an API. And it's the who to follow API, and the audience is this URL right here. So this is just saying when we log in, we have the intention of passing something to this API over here. All right, so audience there, and config.audience. Not configure, but auth config.audience. Codes with Ankit. Hello, what's up? Another Giovanni is saying to move my... I'm going to close this because I don't need to have this project open. There we go. And you're saying to move inside of the image gallery, the load images. It's saying move your API function definition outside as well, and only call the function inside your use effect. It shouldn't matter, but at least one less thing to worry about. Yeah, I don't think that would change the functionality, but yeah, I could put this thing out here. So we'll take a look at that in a second, and then let's go back to the index.js, and let's hopefully we can get auto import on the Auth0 provider. No, we didn't. Okay, so import Auth0 provider from util/auth. So we'll get that thing. That's going to wrap the entire application. We actually need to use the domain here. So auth config.domain. All right. And then what we can do is inside of our app, this is going to be really, really simple. We'll have two buttons here, log in and log out, and they will call two different functions. One is on click equals log in with redirect, and then this one we'll call log out. And we want to get those two things. So those are functions that the Auth0 library provides to us, so we can get them from the hook that is created in that boilerplate stuff. So inside of our application, it's as easy as using the use Auth0 hook to get these two functions. So let's see. Does that look right? Let's run Netlify dev. We might still be having that same rendering issue. Hopefully we don't, but we might. And then let's come back to our application. And if it's finished, yeah, it looks like it's ready. Let's refresh in here. And you see our login, log out button. We still have this thing going on here. Maybe for demo purposes right now, I'm going to not call that thing, because there's something I'm missing in there that really just isn't working out. And maybe I wonder if so maybe it's thinking the load images function changes. Use call back. And how do you use callback? This takes, like, you pass it the function, right? I actually have to see that in a second. Let's look at an example of use callback. Use callback React hooks. Oh, okay. So we define load images equals use call back, and then do that. So what use callback will do is basically decide when this function should be updated again. So if this thing used some sort of state, we would be able to tell it based on its own dependency array when that thing needs to get re-rendered. Just realized you didn't await load images. Does that matter? I'm not sure if that matters. It might. I don't usually await that actually, because it doesn't, like, even though it returns a promise, I'm not waiting for the response. Like, I don't need to get the response, if that makes sense. So I'm not sure if that matters. But here, I don't think this will make any difference in case that load images thing is re-rendering for some reason. Let's see, back in our thing. Oh, we need to define that thing above here. So let's come down here and see if that makes any difference. Nope, same thing. I really don't know what's going on there. And I feel like this is a pretty common thing that I do in a lot of places, and I don't know why. So anyway, that's still, something's wrong there, but I can comment that out. And I think I've already got all of this stuff configured, hopefully, to work with actual login. So I go to Auth0, I can sign in with Twitter now. And I think I've probably already like authorized this. And now I come back and I'm logged in, but you don't really know it. So what we can do is we can also, inside of our app.js, we can get the user and an is authenticated property. So those are two extra things that it returns to us. And then let's just console log the user and is authenticated. And I think we'll see if we come here, it basically starts off with the user is ready to go. So user comes back here. This is the user object. And we can do a couple of basic things here. There's also a loading property. So as it's doing like silent authentication, if it's loading, then just return a PE tag that says loading. So then by the time we get down to this stuff, we know the user is either logged in or not. And then we can show if the user is not authenticated, show the, show the login button. And then otherwise, I'm going to copy and paste this stuff. If they are actually logged in, show the log out button. So what we should see now is we see log out, and I wonder, we might have an issue here. Nope, that worked. So log in or logged out, log back in with Twitter and sign in with Twitter. And then we can also say, like if we have the user, and we'll do a message that says welcome user.username. But I don't know if that property is actually right. And the reason is for something a little bit tricky. Anytime you send back like custom information in here, actually nickname, username, maybe not. Where is this? Oh, handle. So anytime you send back custom information inside of Auth0, you have to kind of use this prefix thing. So we're prefixing all of those properties with whotofollow.com and then grabbing the handle. So now, hopefully, if I see here logged in as James Q. Quick. So we've got the ability to log in, the ability to grab the user's username, and now what we want to do is get an access token. And when we submit the thing, we want to use that access token that is part of what comes back with the user. The access token is what goes to the backend to verify the user's username. In this case, what I'm going to do, just for simplicity on upload, is inside of the upload component, we can get a reference to the user here also. So we'll do use auth0 and we'll get a reference to the user and equals. And then when we upload the image URL, we're going to need to change this a little bit. We're actually going to need to pass a JSON object. So this will be JSON stringify and then the file. So that'll be that URL thing that we talked about before. And then we will also have a property of username. And this is going to come from the user object above, and then that same kind of hacky thing we passed in here before, that string. So this string right here. And is this, why is stringify? Oh, we actually have to call it. So open and close. All right, JSON.stringify. And hopefully that will work. This means that we have to change our upload function a bit. So upload function now, we do need to parse the body. So we'll do JSON.parse, and we'll parse this body. And then this thing will get back file and username. And now, since we have a reference to this username, we can use this inside of here. Like that. Hopefully, if we're lucky, that stuff will work out. Last thing we can do is we only want to show is authenticated and only want to show the image gallery, or the upload, sorry. Only want to show the upload if the user is authenticated. So we'll see we're logged in. We can log out, and hopefully this means that the gallery goes away. So we'll log back in, and then we'll sign in with Twitter. And hopefully we will get back our username here. We can choose a file to upload. So let's grab our desk setup. Let's upload this thing. It says submitting. It got submitted, I think. Now let's check Airtable, and hopefully it's got the same record in here of James Q Quick. And is that, let's make sure that that's the right image, or one of those is. So inside of Cloudinary, the most recent one starts with JB something, and we have that reference right here. So I'm able to grab the user's username from Twitter, I think is really cool, and upload that to Airtable. So now we could use our querying capabilities again if we didn't have some sort of error in the rendering, and we could see that image would be inside of here. Now I'm going to go and create this as a project in GitHub real quick. So let's do a new repository, and this will be, what do we call this? Dev setups, and public, and that will be good. We don't need a README. And then I'm going to connect this local one here. So let's grab these two lines, and let's connect what we got in here. All right, and then git add all, git commit, adding first commit, and let's push that up to GitHub. Now, what we can do is, since I've got that set up, now in Netlify, actually I've got that open over here. In Netlify, I can come to sites, I can create a new site from Git, and I'm gonna set up continuous deployment with GitHub. It will validate that. We're going to use that new repo of setups. Let's find that one. There we go. And we'll do the master branch, and the build command. We'll run npm run build. And then where does React go? If I do npm run build, React will build into a dist directory, I think. Oh, a build directory. Okay, so we'll call this thing build. And we'll go ahead and deploy site. Now, the only thing we're going to be missing is on the other screen over here. I'm going to add our environment variables. So remember those environment variables that we ran locally? Now we need them in Netlify. So I'm going to go kind of behind the scenes on the other monitor and add these in myself. So let me grab this one. And let me know if you're still in the chat. I know this is getting long. Maybe I'm like overly excited. But let me know if you're still here. And I'm also going to rename this site. Let's see, under domain settings, I'm going to rename this thing to dev setups. Is there one for that? Oh man, somebody already took that. So dev setups like that, maybe. Cool. And so there's the new name. And then I want to, let's go back there, upload those environment variables, which is what we need to do. So unfortunately, this is a little bit tedious. You have to do them one at a time, which kind of sucks. But I'm going to scroll down again. I'm doing this off on the other page, so you can't quite see it. But that's what I'm doing. So CodeStacker says he's still here. Thanks for being here, CodeStacker. Really appreciate that, all the support. And yeah, I'm going to go through and copy and paste all these in, which is kind of a shitty process, to be honest. One of the cool things about Gatsby Cloud is they have the ability to bulk upload environment variables. So instead of uploading them one at a time, which is really tedious, you can upload them all at the same time, which is really cool. But I am just like copying and pasting all of these in here to make sure we have all the variables that we need inside of Netlify. Anybody else still hanging around? Let me know in the chat. And especially, like I said, if you have any questions, let me know that as well. Type API key, then the base, ID. Oh, by the way, I always forget to say this. If you're in Podia and you're watching this, there's a link that you can click on to get to the actual YouTube stream, and then you can actually ask questions in the chat. I don't know. Corey has texted me. I don't know if that's why. I forget to mention that, but if you've been kind of just watching and feel like you've had questions and didn't know how to ask them, you can open up. If you hover on the browser, you can you can click on like a YouTube button, and it will take you to the stream itself inside of YouTube. Sorry if people have been like didn't know that and kind of missed out on asking questions until now. So you have the ability to go and do that. Hopefully you haven't, or hopefully you did that already and haven't been missing out. But just in case you have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, I think I've got all of the variables inside of Netlify. After you update your environment variables inside of Netlify, I'm going to go to deploys, and then I'm going to just like, actually, let's just cancel the one that it was already doing because that one's going to fail. It finished. That's fine. We will clear cache and trigger another deploy. And it looks like we've got a couple people that are still hanging out. Really glad you're still here. Steven or Stefan. Boogie is here. Dolorose is here. Awesome that you're still here. And my goal is in the next, hopefully 10 minutes or so, we get something working that will allow you to upload your own images. And well, I guess we probably don't want to have that like React issue. So I don't know what we'll do about that. Somebody's got to figure that out. And Coriano texted me. What did Coriano ask? Let's see here. Do you have to master branch for Netlify? I'm not sure, Coriano, do I have to use the master branch? You don't. You could choose whatever branch you want to. That's just kind of what it uses by default. So, and that's what it's always connected to for me. Which, by the way, I just realized I am at 9,880 something subscribers on YouTube, which means I'm super close to 10,000, which to me is really, really exciting. So if you're in the stream and you haven't subscribed, you totally should. It's uploading the functions. It says the site is live. Now this is where there's a million things that could go wrong. Okay, so that at least showed the login button. Now the thing I need to update is inside of my application Auth0. Auth0 has to know the name of the application that I want to log in and out from. So there's a list of different URLs in here. I'm going to make sure that I paste this one in these different configuration places, and hopefully we'll have login capabilities in the site now. Hey, Coriano, since you're now in the YouTube chat, were you stuck on the Podia page? I'm so sorry if you were. I totally forgot to mention that that's something that I need to, that you might want to do so you can actually get in here and ask questions. Boogie Bum, thanks for the congratulations. I appreciate that. That's actually, like 10,000 is a big step for me. I'm really excited about it. Let's see if, cool. So in production, that logged in. So if you want to, right now, people that are out there, you can log in with your Twitter account and you can upload an image to this site. Let me know when you do that. And in the meantime, I'm going to talk through a little bit more stuff of how to do this more securely so that I make sure. Right now, we're passing the username as part of the post. We don't actually want to do that. We want to pass it as a JWT, as a JSON web token. So we'll talk about that here in a second. So what we need to do is when a user tries to submit, we need to get their access token. So this will be const token equals await get token silently. And this is a function that comes from the use auth0 hook. So we get user, and then we want to get the get token silently hook. And Steven says, had to switch from the Podia side earlier in the webinar. Noticed it too. Yeah, so sorry about that. I keep meaning to mention that at the beginning, but totally forget. So glad you made your way over here. And Corey, same to you. So what I'm trying to do is I'm asking auth0 during the login process. auth0 gives an access token. And I want to get that thing from the auth0 hook here. And then what I'll do is I'll pass that in as a headers property. And then I'll pass this in, or excuse me, headers, pass it in the headers as the authorization property. And then what it looks like is bearer and then space. And then I'm going to use ES6 template literal strings here and token. All right. So what we're doing is after the login process, access token comes back with our login, and then now we want to get that access token and send it when we make this post request. This way we can validate that access token on the back end so that no one else, if they're not logged in or if they don't have a valid token, can be able to submit pictures. So hopefully that looks right. And I'm going to cheat again. I'm going to create an auth util inside of Airtable, or not Airtable, I don't know what I'm saying, inside of my utils and my serverless functions. And let me grab, I'm going to copy this stuff. Now I'd be happy to talk about what's going on in this thing later on in more detail. If you have questions, feel free to ask. But basically what this thing will do is these couple of functions in here, where did that thing go? Inside of auth. Has the ability, not that one, rats. This one has the ability to check for that access token. And you can see it does a little bit of string parsing on the headers right here. And it basically validates whether or not that user has a valid token, which is cool. So what I can do is inside of my upload serverless function inside of here, I'm going to const get that function from equals require utils /auth. So I'm just getting that function to take care of that for me. And then I'm going to check to see const. I think that thing will return the token if it's there or throw an error. Okay, so this will get basically the user back from the check header for valid token, and we pass this the event.headers, and then we need to surround this with a try catch. So this could throw an error, and then error is basically going to be if there's if the user is not, if that JWT is not valid. So if there's an error, we will return a status code of, let's see, what did I do in this other one? Grab. Oh, I'm not actually using this. Anyway, this is like a 401, I think, and then we'll return a body that is JSON.stringify, not that one, stringify, and then an object with an error that says unauthorized. Okay, all right, I like breezed through a lot of that stuff, but hopefully what we're doing is we're passing along the access token as a header inside of the post request. And then all we're doing is parsing that access token and then validating whether it's a real token and then getting a reference to this user up here. And we'll actually need to do this. So we start off with a user equals null, and then we get the user based on that access token that comes back. So at this point, let's just log out console.log the user. And this stuff will actually go back to what it was. So we're going to get the file directly from event.body because we're just passing a JSON string in here. Make sure we're doing that correctly, which we're not. So we need to, the body, the headers don't actually go in the body. So there's another error. The headers are a property down here. All right, so there's our headers. Is that not right? Oh, then we've got this extra thing here. So we don't need that. We don't need the JSON stringify, and we don't need any of this and this, and then a comma. Hopefully that does it. So now we're, like we were doing before, we're just passing that string, and then we're also including a header with the authorization token. And then lastly, we're parsing that thing. So we call this check header for valid token by passing in the headers. It will get that token. It will decode it and then give us the user. And then with the user, we can use the user dot and what, actually, let's just log out the user and let's not, let's hard code this for a second. And then inside of here, let's not actually upload anything just yet. So let's comment this out and let us return back a status code of 200 and then a body of JSON stringify and object with the user. Let's just return back the user. All right. By the way, it looks like 2 people, CodeStacker and BoogieBum, have uploaded. Let's see if that's inside of here. We've got one from CodeStacker, so it pulled your Twitter account appropriately. I don't see the one, BoogieBum, did yours seem like it came through? I don't have any like error handling in there, so you might want to check your network tab to see if it actually went through. But I at least see one of them, so something is going right. That's cool. And then hopefully CodeStacker's image, I'm assuming you did a PG image. We'll see what it is. Sweet. So this is the one from CodeStacker. So we've got the ability for you to upload images. BoogieBum, let me know if you find out what went wrong or not. And now let's restart all of this stuff again. And all right, it's up and running. Let's see here. Let's refresh this. Not that shortcut, but another one. I'm logged in. I choose a file. I pass the desk setup. I upload. And then error, obviously. Let's see in here. This error cannot find. Oh, I'm missing the packages. Duh. So with that little utility thing that I created, there's 2 packages that it uses. JSON web token and then the JWKS -RSA. So it uses both of those packages to be able to decode and validate that token. So we'll give that a second to install those packages. And I'm hoping if this works, then one, you'll still be able to do exactly what you've already been doing, but it'll be more secure, or at least from my end, so no one can kind of hack and just like dump a bunch of stuff into my Cloudinary and Airtable. So let me refresh this page again. Let's do choose file and the, where's my desk setup? This one, and upload. So something happened. Let me look in my network tab. What I want to see, hopefully, is in the request that went there, you see I've got this authorization bearer token. That's a good sign. And the console in here, oh, I missed the damn await again. So this should be an await to actually get that user back. I did this in my course also, and it took me freaking forever to figure out what the hell I did wrong. Anyway, so let's try again with the choose file and the desk setup and upload. And now, do we see the user? Yes, we do. And included in there is, I thought I included the actual username, although maybe I didn't. Rats, I didn't include the username in that. I thought I had that set up before, but I guess I didn't. Twitter. Huh. Well, all right, let's look in the Auth0 configuration for that application. So in our who to follow front end, or actually, sorry, in the rules, this is where I'm adding all of that Twitter information. So this is just ways to customize, and I'm doing this handle here. All right, but I can also do this for the access token. Hopefully that will give me access to the handle inside of that user. So let's save that. And I don't think I actually have to log out, but I'll do this just in case. Let's log out. When I log back in, hopefully what this thing will do is when it returns that access token, and the access token will include the handle for me. So hopefully we're validated. Let's get this user. Let's get this image. Let's upload, and let's see inside of here. Did we get an extra permission? Or sorry, got to scroll down. Now did we get it? Yes, we got the handle. So this is a little hacky. It's not the best, but on that user, now we can get the username equals user and then pass in that string. So same thing we just did. So now I have absolute confidence that whoever is sending, wherever that JWT comes from, I can validate it and I can get the user's username out of it. And then I can go on about the actual information for uploading stuff. So let's comment back all of this stuff in. Comment in. And we don't need to log the user anymore. And yeah, I think that's good. Now I can refresh the page and choose a file, and this should go all the way through. Let's do something different. Did I have any... what are my most recent pictures? Oh, here's my like awkward picture of the day from recording this morning. There's my like just a freeze frame from editing my video. Let's upload that thing, and let's make sure that this also gets to Cloudinary. And I think Dolores said that you updated one as well. So let's see. Here's probably from Dolores. Here's the one that I just uploaded from me. And then inside of Dev Setups in Airtable, now I've got a record for all of these things as well. So what I want to, let's just take all this stuff and update it with extra security and push that out. This will do an automatic rebuild on the Netlify side. And if we could get this damn thing to work with calling that API, then we could at least see those images too, but we can't right now. So let's look at image gallery. Load images. I don't think it doesn't seem like defining this as a use callback matters like that. Why is this thing bad? Function makes the dependencies of the use effect hook change. It doesn't actually, I don't think, but this thing could still be an empty array. Let's see if that thing will get up and running again. It's going to load the information. And it's still doing this infinite thing, but at least it's pulling. You can see it's pulling all of those records, which is really cool. So I wonder, man, I'll pay somebody if they can figure out what's going on with this. Because I'm looking at, and this is stuff that I do every time. Images and image. Sometimes there's like naming things where you name things similar and you don't realize that you're like uploading a different or updating a different variable than you actually realized. I don't know. How are we on time? We're at 2 hours. If you're still here and hanging out, thank you. That's super cool. Long stream today. What is this thing logging out? Record. Where is that log coming from? It's coming from the records in Airtable. I didn't think didn't we strip out all of that information? Where is that from? Is that in the Get images. Did we still leave in? Oh, we're still logging that out here. So we're still returning the formatted records, but it's logging it out. So if I should be making a request to that. What's interesting is I don't see it making the request a ton of times, which is even more odd, because wouldn't I see like this get images if it's repeating that thing? Use effect inside of our image gallery. So even though it's triggering that use effect, it's not making the API call. Huh, I'm mind blown. So a couple of questions. One, I would like to style this up a little bit and then add the functionality to add likes to it. Would you be interested in a part 2 of this? If you are, let me know in the chat, and maybe I'll schedule one for next week where we can do, like I said, adding basically a liking system, or you can upvote basically. I think that would be fun to do, and style it, and then hopefully fix this damn bug, which I just, for the life of me, have no idea what that is. And I guess I don't feel so bad because we haven't all figured it out together. I don't know. Use effect will call load images, empty array here. Is my use effect defined correctly? Use effect, where's my snippet? Don't return this thing, call load images, and pass in an empty array for this. Same thing. Wow, weird. Yeah, still gotta figure that issue. Coriano says yes, he's in for probably next week, same time. I want to do this. I'm thinking about doing these kind of a once a week or once every couple of week type thing. So Coriano's in. Anybody else, if you're interested, let me know as well. And I think we made a lot of progress. This is really cool, touching on some really cool technologies and putting all this stuff together, stuff that I get really excited about. Now, I do want to share that I have my full course of this React and Serverless is launching on Tuesday. So May 27th, this thing will be ready to go for people to purchase. And with that, if you sign up for this newsletter to start, anybody on my newsletter is going to get a 50% off coupon. So if you're interested in the course, $40 full price, $20 with the coupon. Sign up on the newsletter. I'll send everyone there 50% off, so it'll be $20 for the course. Boogie is in, Dolorose is in, and then Coriano is asking for, could we include delete and edit functionality? Potentially, that would get delete is probably a little bit easier, but we could look at doing that too. Steven is in. Kamal, a little bit advanced for you. Sorry about that. I would. If any of it is relevant enough and you're just like a question away from understanding a piece of it, please let me know. I definitely want to be able to help make this like a welcoming environment. So if you felt intimidated, I apologize for that. This was a super fast one. So I totally understand if you were. If you have any questions that you want to talk about, maybe like off the stream, if you want to just have them like a one-on-one or something like that, feel free to reach out to me as well that way. My Twitter DMs are open. If you want to send me a message there, I'd be happy to answer some questions and maybe point you in the direction of some resources that I've taken and recommended for other people for learning React. So I'd be happy to help you there. Steven is saying with a discount, it is $20. Yes, with the 50% off discount, the cost will be $20. One of the things that I'm really excited about that is having moved to a new platform on Podia, and then also having a Discord server that I will have, I guess is up and running now, that I will have available for people in general, but then specifically a channel for the course. So if you look into it, or if you take the course, then I'll have specifically that channel available for anybody. And then I'm going to start advertising this Learn, Build, Teach Discord channel for anyone that's interested. Actually, if you're interested here, let me know and I can send you a link as well. But I'm going to start pumping that out. But specifically for the course, I'll have that channel where you can ask questions and all that kind of stuff too. Coriano saying rename a file or image. Potentially, yeah, we could look into that. We've got a couple of things that definitely want to address first, so we'll see how far we get. And Steven says, I guess maybe Steven is saying this is a little bit too advanced for you as well. Again, if you have questions, let me know. But I do want to stress, like, in the full course, it moves quickly, but there's a lot more explanation of everything that goes on, right? I skimmed over a lot, so the course moves a lot slower. It's between 6 and 7 hours of content, so it's the biggest course that I've put out, and you'll get a lot more context into a lot of these things, and I think that will be kind of cool. So yeah, if you're interested, did I throw the link? Yeah, I threw the link in there, so you can check it out there, and I will go ahead and look into scheduling a stream for next week to do some follow-up, and I will email everyone the details for that, where you can sign up to make sure you're ready for that one to get the announcement or the reminder and that kind of stuff. But anyway, I super enjoyed this. I really enjoyed this. Thanks everyone for being here, especially for a couple hours. That was long. And hopefully I'll see you next week. So I'll send a recap and a link to the posted video so you can go back and rewatch if you're interested. But in the meantime, yeah, I'll talk to you later. And thanks everybody for being here.